So sometimes you just get dumped on the Linux command line without really knowing what you're doing. Maybe it's for a project you're working on, or you're a programmer and you're not entirely comfortable with Linux, but a server is running it, or for some reason you end up on the Linux command line. So instead of being terrified, I'm going to show you the very, very, very basics of what to do, how to move around, and how the thing generally works. So for most of my subscribers, this will be a little bit, I would say a lot too basic, but the point is I'm going to try to translate actions over here on the right in a file manager to corresponding actions on the command line. So you can see that it's not just these scary arcane commands, but it's actually just fairly simple things, and once you try them a couple of times you'll remember them and you'll feel comfortable on the Linux command line. You start generally when you open a shell. So the shell is, for our purposes, the command line. It's the environment that is listening for your commands and then giving you something back when you type in a command. It takes a command, evaluates that command, and then gives you the result. It's pretty much like a calculator, like a really, really advanced, really awesome calculator. You can see the very first command I'm going to teach you is because a lot of the time you'll end up somewhere where you don't know where you are, and the very first thing you want to do is find out, where the heck am I on this system? And for that, the command is pwd, which is short for print my working directory. So just type in pwd, and the enter key submits a command, and then the shell goes and evaluates it, does some magic, and then gives you the answer on the next line, or lines. So just to review, you're given a prompt, a shell prompt. That's what this is. It's saying, hey, I'm ready for you to give me some commands. You type in a command, you hit enter, it does its magic and gives you back an answer. It's the very, very simple version of what's going on here. So print working directory. Well, what is this actually saying? It's saying you're in the directory /home/Dave. Paths generally will start with root. This first slash is called the root, and basically you can't go up any higher than this. I'll show you. So here we've got the same exact directory. This file manager is graphical, but it's saying the same thing. It's saying, hey dude, you're in the home directory. There you are. It's home. So this first slash is all the way at the top of the file system. So if we click on computer here, this is the top of the file system. Don't worry about all these confusing things. So you see slash is the top, and then we have home. So we go into home, and then Dave. So we go into Dave. And there we are. So that's the same action, basically asking which directory am I in a graphical file browser and on the command line. Print working directory, pwd. If you haven't tried it right now, write it down. So the next question we ask, now that we know where we are on the file system, is what's here? What is in this directory that I'm in? Obviously, in a graphical file browser, that's sort of the default view is what's in this directory. If I want to do that on the command line, all I have to do is type in ls for list. Please list the things that are in my directory right now. And you can see the answer it gives me is essentially the exact same thing as this here. So you can see there's site.retry, the hi there text file, the downloads, documents, music, etc. And here, obviously, they have pretty icons and everything, but it's the same idea. You list something, and it shows you what's in the place that you are. Now, what's a little bit harder to do is, let's say I want to see what's on the desktop here. Well, I have to double-click on the desktop, and then it'll tell me. Okay, that's what's in the desktop. I'll go back to home. If I want to see what's on the desktop here, I actually don't have to move. I can simply stay where I am on the file system, so in /home/Dave, and I can say list desktop, and hitting tab in most shells will get you auto completion. So I just actually typed in ls capital DES, and it already knows. That narrows it down to just one choice, which is desktop. If I just did capital D, there would be some ambiguity there. It could be any of those three things. So it shows me the three things which it could be. And you can see there's no new shell prompt at the bottom. So it's actually still waiting for me to finish typing in my command and hit enter. So that's what I'll do. I'll say, oh yeah, I actually meant desks, and that should be enough for you to figure it out. And it is. Next time I hit tab, it auto-completes. So when I hit enter here, I get a listing of what's on the desktop. So there you go. Same idea, right? You see the Ansible directory and all those files. Okay, back to the home directory. And you can see here I haven't changed location. I'm still sitting in home Dave. So if I actually wanted to do the same thing and move to the desktop, here essentially I'm moving to the desktop and I'm looking at what's there. If I wanted to actually move there, I'd have to change the directory that I'm in. So a lot of people call this the folder directory. It's all the same. So if I wanted to change the folder I'm in or the directory, I would say cd. Please change the directory that I'm in. And as before, tab gets me my auto-completion because I'm lazy, and you should be too. So cd desktop says, okay, now I actually want to move to the desktop. I don't want a list of what's in there. I just want to move myself so that I'm sitting in the desktop. And now I'm sitting in the desktop. You can see it showing me desktop. This has changed. This little symbol here is a shortcut for home your username. So my username is Dave. So this little symbol lets me know I'm actually here. If I was a different user, this would be the symbol for home, whatever my username is. So if I was Andrew, then this symbol would mean home/Andrew. Okay, but we're sitting on the desktop, and now we can do the same thing we did before. We can just list, and we'll get the list of files and directories in our current directory, so where we are. Since we're sitting on the desktop here, we get this same list. Now, there's this concept of going up and down in the file system. This can be a little bit confusing, and I've got a whole video that explains this, but just for now, I'm going to show you up generally means towards the root of the file system, which is this outermost directory here. So you can see it says open the contents of the file system. That's everything. And that's what this slash is, as you remember from before. That's called root, and that's the directory where everything else is inside of it. You can't go back any further than that. So you can see, if we actually click on this computer icon here, that's the root directory. It's showing us what that is. And we can go there too. So we can change directory. You could also just list it, right? If you gave list just a slash as the directory name, it would list the root directory. But you can see we're still sitting in the desktop, which you can see after the prompt. So if you say cd root, and then run a listing, you'll see the same thing, but you'll actually be sitting there. Okay, now I'm gonna change the shell I'm in, and this is most likely gonna be, by the way, if you want to clear the stuff you've got on your screen on the shell, clear does that, and it really just sort of scrolls the shell down. So you can see I can actually just scroll up. It didn't do anything. It just created a new line and scrolled me down, so I couldn't see all this junk up here anymore. Okay, so we've cleared our little terminal. That's I know there's a lot of names for everything here, but terminal is basically, for the purposes of this video, it's the same thing as shell, and it's the same thing as command line. Just glom all those things together in your brain. That all means the same thing. Your shell, your terminal, command line. Obviously, there's technical differences to them, but it's not important for now. You don't have to learn that right away. Okay, so you can see I just changed how my little shell prompt looks, and there's a little bit more information, and this is probably a little bit more like what you'd be seeing on your shell. I use something called Z shell. You'd be using a shell called probably bash. And bash shows you a little bit more information at the cost of cluttering up your screen a little bit more. So it's showing me my username at the machine I'm on. It's called my Linux machine. That's the host name of the machine. Incidentally, this is where email addresses come from. This was being used, in the 70s, way before email really was a thing. So user at my machine's name, and then location. And the location, you see, it's using this little tilde symbol, which we said is really just a shortening of root home / username, right? Dave. So what this is really saying is you're sitting in, if you just expand this in your mind, you're actually saying /home /Dave desktop. But this is the only part you see. Otherwise, your shell would just be full of like your path if you're sitting in some folder very far down the tree. Okay, now I'm going to explain this whole up and down thing. CD. This 2 dots means back or up. And if we just say, so here's our path. We're sitting in home, Dave, desktop. If we want to go up a directory, up just means closer to the root of the tree. Basically picture an upside down tree. If we want to go up a directory, so into home Dave, and get out of the desktop, we simply say cd ... Now, this is a shortcut for, we could also say cd home Dave, and that would get us there. There we are. But let's go back to the desktop. Here we are in the desktop again. We can just shortcut that to cd ... And you'll see the same thing happens. cd ... is the same as saying cd up one directory. So it's just a way of saving yourself some typing. A single dot, incidentally, just means the current directory that I'm in. Not that useful when you're first starting on Linux, but it comes into play later. Okay, so these are the very, very, very basics of working and playing with Linux. If you end up stranded on the command line somewhere and you don't know what to do, this should at least get you moving around, looking at things, figuring out where you are, and exploring a tiny bit. If this has been helpful, make sure to Twitter, tweet, subscribe, add me to your Facebook, Instagram me, send me a Snapchat, and otherwise go crazy with social media. It's true, I don't have accounts for all those things. You don't have accounts for any of them. All right, I don't have accounts. It's too bad. Goodbye.